My family used me as their ATM to support my unemployed brother. I was paying $950 monthly while he did nothing. But when I recorded their confession and posted it on Facebook, their entire reputation was destroyed, and they begged for forgiveness. I'm 25 years old, work in tech, making pretty good money, honestly, and I need to tell this story because what my parents did to me basically turned me into their personal ATM for almost a year. And honestly, the revenge I took was so satisfying that I still smile when I think about it. I guess I should start from the beginning, when I still believed my family actually cared about me and not just about my bank account. I grew up being the responsible son, the typical one who gets good grades, graduates on time, gets a good job, and never causes problems. My older brother Brett, who's 27, well, he's the complete opposite. He dropped out of college after the first year, has had like 5 jobs in his life, and none of them lasted more than 6 months, and he's basically been living with my parents forever. And when I say living, I mean they pay for everything. Absolutely everything. While he just plays video games in his room like he's 15. But that was never my problem. I had moved out at 22, had my own small but decent apartment, paid my bills, was building my life, and I thought everything was going well. About a year and a half ago, my parents invited me to dinner on a Sunday. Nothing weird. We did that every 2 or 3 weeks. My mom cooked lasagna, which has been my favorite food forever, and everything seemed normal until we finished eating, and my dad says, "Troy, we need to talk about something important." And I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" Thinking maybe one of them was sick or something, but no. Turns out they wanted to propose that I move back home. They explained that the rental market was super expensive, that I was basically throwing money away, that they had plenty of space, and it would be better for everyone if I saved that money to eventually buy my own house. My mom even cried a little, saying she missed having me around. That family should be together. All that emotional stuff she knows how to do really well. Convince me at all. I had my space, my independence. I could do whatever I wanted without anyone bothering me. But they kept insisting for weeks. My mom would call me every 2 days with some new reason why it was a good idea. Things like we could spend more time together, that she'd make me home-cooked meals, and I wouldn't have to eat crap. That Brett was also there, and we could reconnect as brothers since we were really close as kids. And the one that finally convinced me was when my dad told me they'd only charge me $400 a month rent, which compared to the $1,200 I was paying sounded amazing, plus another $200 to help with groceries. So in total it would be $600 a month instead of $1,200 plus food plus utilities, and mathematically it made sense. I could save like $800 or $900 each month. So I moved back home, and the first few weeks were weird but not terrible. I was back in my teenage bedroom with the same old posters I didn't even bother taking down when I left. My twin bed that creaked every time I moved. My small desk where I now had to work from home 2 days a week because my job is hybrid. Brett basically ignored me, which was mutual. He spent all day in his room and only came out to eat or go to the bathroom, and my parents acted like it was great having me back. My mom would make me breakfast some mornings, and my dad and I would watch sports on weekends like when I was a kid. But after like 2 months, I started noticing weird things. First it was that Brett suddenly had a PlayStation 5, that console that cost like $500 and was super hard to get at the time. I asked my mom where he got the money, and she told me it was an early birthday gift from them. Like, okay, whatever, not my money. Then, like a month later, Brett had new Jordan sneakers that easily cost $200, and after that, an expensive mountain bike that he never used because the lazy guy didn't even go outside to the corner. And meanwhile, my mom started asking me to put in a little more for groceries because supposedly everything was more expensive, so my $200 became $300. And then she told me gas and electricity had gone up a lot, so if I could contribute $100 more for utilities, and I like an idiot said yes because I thought I was helping the family. Like 6 more months passed, and by that point, I was paying 400 inches rent, 400 inches groceries, 150 inches utilities, plus my mom would ask me for random money for things like fixing my dad's car, or paying for premium cable, or buying a gift for some relative's birthday. I was basically putting in the same as when I lived alone, but now without privacy or independence or anything. And Brett kept not working, kept living his king's life doing nothing. And every time I asked why he didn't contribute something, anything, even just washing dishes, my mom would say he was going through a tough time, that he was looking for work but the market was complicated, that I shouldn't pressure him because he got stressed, and that didn't help. One day I came home from work and Brett's room had a new giant TV, like one of those 65-inch ones that cost like $800 minimum. And I was fed up, so I went straight to my mom and said, "Where does the money come from for all this, if supposedly we're so tight that you need me to put in more and more each month?" And she got all defensive, saying it was savings they had put away, that Brett needed it to feel better about himself, that I didn't understand how hard it was for him to not have a job and live with his parents at 27. And I'm like, seriously? Because I work every day, pay my bills, and I don't see anyone worrying about how I feel. Things exploded like 2 weeks later when I came home and the room Brett and I shared. Well, technically it was my room, but he used the bathroom that was attached and left his mess everywhere. Was a disaster. There were dirty dishes, clothes thrown around, junk food, trash, and I'd been putting up with his mess for months, but that day, something in me just broke. I went to his room and knocked on the door really loud, and when he opened with an annoyed face because I interrupted him in the middle of his little game, I said, "You need to clean up your pigsty now. I'm sick of living in your dumpster." And he told me to relax, that he'd do it later, and I said no. "You do it now, or I'm going to throw all your crap in the street." He started laughing like it was a joke, so I grabbed a dirty plate and threw it into the hallway, and then he got mad and pushed me. We got into a screaming match, him saying it was my problem if I didn't like it, that nobody was forcing me to be there, and me telling him he was a useless leech who lived off our parents while I paid for everything. My parents came running because of the yelling, and my mom started crying, saying, "Why couldn't we get along?" And my dad told me to calm down, that Brett was right, that nobody was forcing me to stay. And in that moment, everything clicked. For me, like I understood that to them I was just a source of money, and Brett was the son who needed protection and care. I went up to my room and started packing my stuff in the suitcases I still had stored in the closet. My mom came in crying, saying don't go, that we'd work it out, but I was already decided. I went downstairs with my suitcases and my dad was in the living room with his arms crossed and told me, "If you leave, don't come asking for help when things get tough out there." And I told him, "I've never asked you for help, you're the ones who've been using me to support Brett," and I left. I stayed on my friend Keith's couch for like a week while looking for a new apartment. Keith is one of those friends you've known since high school, who's always there when you need him. And he knew the whole situation with my family because I'd told him about it during those months I was living with them. He helped me look for apartments, went with me to see them, and when I finally found one I liked, he helped me move, even lent me money for the deposit because with so many random expenses I'd had the last few months, my savings weren't as good as I expected. Like 4 or 5 months passed without talking to my parents at all. I didn't answer their calls, didn't respond to their messages, basically cut them off completely because I needed that space to process everything and rebuild my life. I got a better job with a 20% raise, bought new furniture for the apartment, started going to the gym with Keith. I mean, my life was improving a ton without them. And then, just when I was starting to feel really good, my mom called me like 20 times in one day until I finally answered. She was all dramatic saying she missed me, that family shouldn't be fighting, that they'd been through a lot and we needed to reconnect. She told me they'd been thinking and wanted to propose something special, a family vacation, the 4 of us together, to the Bahamas, all-inclusive at a luxury resort, as a way to start over and leave all the bad stuff behind. And I, who still had some stupid hope that maybe they'd changed, or at least recognized what they did, told her I'd think about it. She called me like 3 days later to keep pushing, saying she'd already been looking at beautiful resorts, that it would be in 2 months, that we could spend an amazing week together at the beach, that even Brett was excited to reconnect with me. And I'm like, okay, if you guys organize everything and send me the information, I'll see if I can request those days off work. She sounded super happy, saying yes, that she'd take care of everything, that she just needed me to send her the dates I was available, and they'd adjust everything. Like 2 weeks later, they invited me to dinner at the house, supposedly to discuss the trip details. I arrived a bit early, like 20 minutes before the time we'd agreed on, and when I came in through the back door that goes to the kitchen, I heard voices, in the living room. They weren't yelling or anything, but you could clearly hear what they were saying. So I stayed there in the kitchen without making noise. I don't know. Something in me told me to stay quiet and listen. My mom was saying, "So Troy books everything on his card, and we tell him we're going to deposit our part, but we never do. And after a while, we just stop mentioning it, and that's it." Brett was laughing and said something like, "So basically, we're getting a free vacation off him. That's great." My dad said, "He has a good job now. He can afford it. It's not like we're going to leave him on the street. It's just a vacation." And my mom added, "Besides, he owes us after how he treated us, how he left without being grateful for everything we did for him." I stood there for like 5 minutes just listening while they kept talking about the details, about how they were going to convince me to book the most expensive package, how they were going to act all united and happy during the trip, how afterwards they'd just ignore any attempt of mine to ask them to pay their part. And in that moment, I don't know, something in me changed. I didn't feel anger or sadness anymore. I felt incredible clarity, like I finally understood exactly who they were and what they deserved. I took out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I moved a little closer to the living room, close enough for it to record well but without them seeing me, and I recorded like 10 minutes of their conversation where they basically confessed the whole plan. When I finished, I put away my phone, waited a minute, and then opened and closed the back door, making noise like I'd just arrived. I walked into the living room all casual, saying, "Hi family, what's up?" And they completely changed. Smiling faces, hugs, my mom offering me water and saying how good it was that I came. We sat down to dinner, and they acted their perfect little role. My mom took out a brochure of an incredible resort in the Bahamas, all 5-star type, with private beach, spa, gourmet restaurants, water activities. The place easily cost like $3,000 per person for a week. She explained that they'd researched a lot, and this was the perfect place, that it would be unforgettable, that we all deserved a vacation like that after everything we'd been through. My dad said he'd put in half of the total cost. My mom said she'd put in a part too, and if I could book everything on my credit card because theirs was having problems, they'd transfer me their part as soon as it was resolved. I acted like I believed it all. I said, "Wow, yeah, it looks incredible," that I was really excited about the idea of reconnecting with them, that I could definitely book it on my card, no problem, that they could pay me back later at their leisure. Brett even gave me a pat on the back saying it was going to be epic, that we hadn't gone on family vacations in years. The whole act was so obvious now that I knew the truth, that I almost wanted to laugh right there, but I held back. I got to my apartment that night and started planning. I looked up the same resort they wanted, saw the dates, calculated the costs, everything. And then I booked an all-inclusive package for one person, just for me, on the dates we'd talked about. I spent like $3,200 on a week of absolute luxury, ocean view room, all the spa treatments I wanted, excursions to private islands, everything the resort offered. Then I searched online for templates of flight confirmations and hotel reservations, and with a bit of Photoshop I learned years ago, I made fake documents that looked completely real, with made-up confirmation numbers, with the names of the 3 of them, and flight dates that were 3 hours after the real time of my flight. I sent them the documents by email like 2 weeks before the trip saying, "Here are the confirmations, everything's ready, see you at the airport." My mom responded, super excited. My dad said, "Perfect." Brett didn't even respond, but I knew he'd seen the message. During those 2 weeks before the trip, they acted like the perfect family. They'd invite me to eat, send me memes on chat. My mom even sent me photos of the bathing suits she'd bought for the trip. The day of the trip arrived, and I left my apartment around 4 inches the morning because my real flight was at 8. I went to the airport, checked my bag, went through security, waited in the boarding area drinking coffee and watching videos on my phone. I got on the plane, found my seat in first class because I told myself if I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. And we took off. The whole flight, I was thinking about what was probably happening at the airport, imagining their faces when they realized. I arrived in the Bahamas around noon. The resort was even nicer than it looked in the photos. My room had a private terrace with direct ocean view, a king-size bed with sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent, a bathroom with a hot tub, basically everything anyone could dream of. I changed, put on sunscreen, went down to the beach and threw myself on one of those loungers with palm roof, while a waiter brought me piña coladas every time I finished the previous one. My phone started exploding with calls and messages around 10 inches the morning their trip time. First my mom, then my dad, then Brett, then all of them together from my mom's phone. The messages said things like, "Where are you? The confirmations don't work. They won't let us check in. What's happening? Answer the damn phone." I left them all on read and kept enjoying my drink. I spent an incredible week. Every day I did something different. Snorkeling on a coral reef, massages at the spa, dinners at restaurants where the menu didn't even have prices, yacht excursions to little private islands where I was literally the only tourist. I took like 500 photos, not because I wanted to show off, but because I wanted to remember every second of that perfect revenge. Every time my phone rang with a message from them, I ignored it until like the fourth day they stopped trying. I came back home after the week, and honestly, I felt like new. Tanned, rested, happy in a way I hadn't felt in years. I got to my apartment around 8 at night, put the key in the lock, and when I opened the door, there they were, all three sitting in the hallway outside my door. I don't know how long they'd been waiting for me, but they looked tired and angry. Especially Brett, who never left the house, so probably for him being there was a huge sacrifice. My mom stood up immediately and started yelling, "How could you do this to us? You left us stranded at the airport. You made us look like idiots. We lost all the money we'd set aside for that trip." My dad was red with fury, saying I was a brat, that I owed them an explanation, that I should give them back their money immediately. Brett just looked at me with pure hatred. Like if he could have killed me with his look right there, he would have. I told them to come in, that I didn't want to make a scene in the hallway with the neighbors hearing everything. They came into my apartment and sat in my living room while I left my suitcase in my room and got my laptop. I came back to the living room, opened the laptop, connected the audio file to the Bluetooth speakers I had, and hit play. You could hear it perfectly clear, my mom's voice saying, "So, Troy books everything on his card, and we tell him we're going to deposit our part, but we never do." Brett's laughter, my dad's comments, everything. The faces they made when they heard themselves were, I don't know how to describe it, like a mix of shock and panic and shame. My mom tried to say that was taken out of context, that I didn't understand, that it was just a joke they were making. I interrupted her and said, "A joke? Like the joke of convincing me to move into your house to use me as an ATM to support Brett? Like the joke of asking me for more, and more money, while he bought himself luxuries? Like the joke of planning to scam me with a vacation?" My dad stood up and told me it was a mistake to have raised me, that I was a selfish and evil son, that family was the most important thing and I had betrayed it. I started laughing, like a genuine laugh because the irony was too much, and I told him, "I betrayed the family? You guys exploited me for months, lied to me, planned to rob me, and I'm the bad guy because I realized it and defended myself." Brett finally spoke and said he didn't care, that I'd never been likable to him anyway, and now at least he didn't have to pretend. That hurt less than I thought it would. I think deep down I always knew Brett was like that. I told them to leave, that I never wanted to see them again, that if they tried to approach me, I was going to make the recording public with all the extended family and their friends and anyone who wanted to hear it. My mom was crying, those manipulative tears she always used when she wanted to get her way, but this time, they didn't work. They left my apartment, and I locked the door, threw myself on the couch, and fell asleep right there because the whole confrontation had left me exhausted. I thought that was the end of it, that we were just going to ignore each other mutually for the rest of our lives and that's it. But no, because they decided to start telling their version of the story to the whole family. Uncles, cousins, grandparents, everyone started sending me messages saying, how could I have been so cruel to my parents, that they just wanted to reconnect with me and I'd played a horrible prank on them, that I'd left them broke and publicly embarrassed. My Aunt Patricia even sent me a message of like 15 paragraphs about respect for parents and family values, and I don't know what else. So I did what I had to do. I wrote a Facebook post, super long, telling the whole story from the beginning. From when they convinced me to move, through all the months they financially exploited me, the mess with Brett, how I left, the vacation plan, and at the end, I put the complete audio recording as an attached file. I published it as public, not as private just for friends, and I tagged my parents and several relatives. The post went viral. I mean, within my family circle and family friends. In the first hours, it had like 200 reactions and 80 comments. Most people supporting me and saying they couldn't believe my parents had done that. Some even saying they'd always suspected something weird was going on with how they treated Brett versus how they treated me. There were some comments from people defending my parents, mainly their closest friends, but even they sounded unconvincing after hearing the recording. My parents obviously saw the post like 2 hours after I published it, and instead of staying quiet, they decided to comment defending themselves, saying it was a lie, that the recording was edited, that I was a liar. But nobody believed them because the recording was super clear and had the whole complete conversation without weird edits or anything. My mom even tried to delete her Facebook for a few days, but when she came back, the post was still there and people kept talking about it. Like a week later, they showed up at my apartment again. This time they rang the doorbell instead of waiting for me outside, and when I looked through the peephole and saw it was them, I almost didn't open, but something told me to hear what they wanted. I opened the door but didn't let them in. I stood in the doorway with my arms crossed, waiting for them to talk. My dad, who usually was the one who got most aggressive, this time was almost begging. He told me to please delete the post, that their reputation was ruined, that people treated them differently, that even at his work they'd seen the post because a coworker was friends with me on Facebook and had shared it, that they were going to fire him if this continued. My mom was also pleading, saying they'd made a mistake. That sometimes people do bad things, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. That they deserved a second chance. That if I deleted the post, they promised never to approach me again, if that's what I wanted. Brett wasn't even with them this time, probably because he knew I had no affection toward him, so his presence would only make things worse. I told them no, that the post was going to stay there forever, that anyone who searched their names on Facebook was going to find exactly who they were and what they'd done. My dad called me some things I won't repeat here, basically lost his composure completely, and I closed the door in his face and locked it. I heard them yelling on the other side for like 2 minutes before they finally left. That night, I made a final post on Facebook. I wrote something short and simple, saying that from that moment, I was cutting all contact with my parents and my brother, that I wasn't going to respond to messages or calls or anything, that the recording and the complete story were public for whoever wanted to know the truth, and that I hoped this would serve as a warning to other people about how family manipulation can reach incredible extremes when money is involved. I closed the comments on that post so nobody could start new drama there, and it was basically my way of saying, this is over, period. I blocked all 3 of them on all social media, on WhatsApp, on my phone, basically on any platform where they could try to contact me. I told Keith the whole updated situation, and he told me that if they ever showed up at my apartment again, I could call him and he'd come help me deal with them. Which honestly made me feel good, because it's nice to know that at least I have someone on my side. It's been like 8 months since all that with the post and the last confrontations. My life honestly is better than ever. I got another promotion at work last month. They raised my salary again. I'm dating a girl I met at the gym, who's super normal and comes from a functional family, which is refreshing. My savings are finally where they should be, because I don't have leeches draining my account every month. Sometimes I think about my parents and wonder how they're doing, if Brett finally got a job or if he's still the same leech, if they learned anything from all this or if they just blame me for everything. But the truth is, I don't care that much anymore. Some relatives still talk to me, mainly the ones who supported me from the beginning or who after hearing the recording understood that I was the victim in this whole situation. My Uncle Mark, my dad's younger brother, invited me to dinner like 2 months ago and told me he always knew something wasn't right in how my parents treated Brett versus how they treated me. But he never knew what to say or how to help. He thanked me for making the truth public and told me if I ever needed anything at all, he was there, for me. It was weird, but also nice to have that support from someone in the family, even if it's just one person. Last week I got an envelope in the mail with no return address. I opened it, and inside was a handwritten letter from my mom. Like 5 pages of her basically trying to justify everything they did. Saying Brett has anxiety and depression problems that make it hard for him to work, that they, as parents, feel the responsibility to take care of him, that I was always the strong son, so they thought I could carry more weight, that it was never their intention to hurt me. The letter ended, asking for forgiveness, and saying that if someday I could find it in my heart to forgive them, they'd be waiting. I read the whole thing, folded it, put it back in the envelope, and threw it in the trash. Maybe it sounds harsh, but honestly, I don't have space in my life anymore for their emotional manipulation, even if now it comes wrapped in apologies and excuses. I don't know if I did the right thing with all this. I mean, sometimes I wonder if the revenge went too far, if I should have handled things differently. But then I remember all those months feeling used and disrespected in my own family, and I tell myself that they chose to treat me that way. I just chose to defend myself in the only way I felt would work. Keith tells me I'm his hero, that what I did was legendary, and he wishes more people had the courage to stand up against family manipulation. But I don't know if I feel like a hero. I feel more like someone who finally learned to set boundaries and not let people walk all over me just because we share blood. Yesterday, I was cleaning my apartment and found an old photo of when we were kids. Brett and me at the park, with my parents, everyone smiling. It looked like a normal, happy family. I looked at it for a long while, trying to remember how it felt in that moment, but the truth is those memories feel like from another life, from another family that doesn't exist anymore. I put the photo in a box in my closet with other old things I don't know if I'll ever want or if I'll just throw away, and I went on with my day. And I guess that's as close as I'm going to get to some kind of closure with this whole situation, just leaving the past where it belongs and keep building my life without them.